Paulie, how are you doing? In this video, how to recognize your ego voice or your intuition voice, and of course what you can start to do about it to get more in touch with your own intuition, your highest self, your own true authentic self, or your core essence is what I would like to say it. And that's why I always say, we are here for creating a place to remember, because what is going on in the world is that our ego voice is suppressing our intuition voice. So in this video we dive deep in this topic because it's a very big issue. It's a very big concern that is destroying our life. It's literally killing us. It's killing our society. It's killing the politics, the government, the monetary system, capitalism, everything that's going on in our current society. It is killing us. Okay, so in this video we dive deep. So first of all, what is the ego voice? The ego is much more concerned with your external identity, okay? Your self-image. How do you think you want to see yourself in relationship to others, and your position in the world, in the external world. Also, it's much more concerned with your basic needs for survival. And the issue is when we grow up, where there was like a lot of survival, financially, emotionally, whatever, then the part in our brain that's associated with survival gets like overstimulated. So then later in life we create like different kind of patterns, behaviors, thought patterns, different kind of beliefs that we have about ourselves and the world, how we are positioned in the world, how we position ourselves in the world, and that becomes basically our blueprint. And what's going on is we live basically in a never-ending cycle when we constantly give attention to the ego voice. So the ego voice, it's again much more concerned with your external identity. So what's going on is your thought patterns, it's projecting his ideas in the external world. Okay, projection screen. So we are constantly projecting our thoughts, emotions to the external world. So everything we see in our 3D world is basically like a cinema screen, right? And what's going on inside of us is basically what we are projecting there in the outside world. Also, what it really does, it's like constantly it wants to compete with others. Okay, it's really much concerned about judgment. It's constantly in a world of judgment, so duality, and it's also a very strong believer of separation, is that you are separated of others, the world around you, and that sort of things. So it's very concerned with control and power and a domination. That's really the shadow side of the ego. It's domination, intimidation, manipulation in order to get his needs met, which the illusion is it never really can be met. All right, because hey, when you're focused externally, you're always coming from a place of lack. All right, that's really the starting point. It's always coming from a lack belief, and that's why the ego wants to find his satisfaction in the external world, on the projection screen, which actually never really can be experienced, never can be felt, okay? Because the ego doesn't feel. That's a part of the intuition. The intuition feels things, the ego doesn't. All right, so it's like constantly like separated. Okay, so how it works is we perceive something from our external world, and then the ego, like a little librarian of the subconscious mind, goes into your infinite library of thoughts and emotions from the past and is projecting that on the projection screen with the expectation that becomes your future as well. So you live in a never-ending cycle of never enough. It always wants more, and that's really the illusion that we are currently living in. It's never satisfied. It always needs to have more, and that's what is destroying our life and what is destroying this planet. So let me give you a couple of examples from my own personal life, from my own personal experience, because hey, this is also my battle. I'm also conquering my own ego voice of rationality and logic. So it's much more attached to our rational thinking and logic and rationality and analyzing things, and that part is more from the left brain, which is also much more related to the masculine part. All right, so within the masculine there's still a lot of very, very huge shadow sides we need to work on. Okay, so you know, you can actually step into your own divine masculine part, which will be of course the protector of the divine feminine, which we will be talking also about in this video when we're going over intuition. But let me give you a couple of examples. Okay, so let's say, you know, when the soul is still a little bit immature, it is in control over the ego, and you know, it goes to school, it gets out of school, it finds a job, and then it realizes, like, wait a minute, you know, things ain't right for me. Okay, so what I need is more freedom, more financial freedom, more time freedom, more independence, more power, more control. So it starts on a journey, let's say, of entrepreneurship, right? It wants to learn to become independent. Okay, so it learns about all these things like marketing or sales and how to influence others and that sort of things. And of course there can be a very, very enlightening part in that, but it also comes with a lot of shadow sides of that. And then, you know, what it actually starts to do, it wants to have more of everything except being more connected to this own intuition. And what's going on, it starts to suppress a part of himself, of herself, and is constantly in this treadmill of never having enough, of always needing more, because there's never any kind of sense of fulfillment and satisfaction or connection. Okay, so it always needs to have more, 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 more. And because he or she is suppressing a part of himself, okay, it eventually starts to run, let's say, into emotional issues like burnout, anxiety, depression, and that sort of things, which is actually like the wake-up call, like, hey, listen, you know, you don't only have a physical body, but you also have a mental, emotional, and a spiritual body, which you have not been paying attention to, and now, boom, you need to go and start paying attention to that. And then, you know, there is like a lot of confusion going on because the ego is starting to lose control. And of course there will be a battle that the ego needs to have control, and then there's like a little glimpse of where the intuition comes in. Ego needs to have more power and control, and then it realized, wait a minute, this power and control is exhausting me, it's burning me out. All right, so what can give me more, let's say, a greater sense of feeling of satisfaction and fulfillment and productivity and creativity, and where my inspiration can flow through me. And then, you know, slowly it can grab a glimpse of that again. Boom, the ego comes in with judgments and says, no, you can't have that, because that is not going to give you any sense of safety, security, freedom, independence, control, power, and so forth. So there will be a constant battle for maybe perhaps many, many years, depending how large this survival mechanism really is. But eventually there will be a turning point. And, you know, I am on this journey myself, you know, to really start recognizing, okay, so is this my ego voice talking to me, or is this my intuition talking to me? And how can I allow that intuitive part more to flow through my life? So, personal example, you know, that part of being the entrepreneur that wants to have more control, more power, more of everything, but never really could find it in his external world, and then, you know, created like a sort of resistance against this external world, and thinking like, wait a minute, this world, this projection screen that we all want to believe in, it does not really make a whole lot of sense. So, you know, let's turn my back around that, and then let's explore this other part of me, you know. But again, we get dragged into this, and then we try to step out of it. We get dragged into this, and so forth, you know. So it is a battle that is going on. It's starting to rain a little bit, finally, after many, many days of over 30 degrees here in London. It's actually quite nice at the moment, but I think it will become dark very, very quickly, and I also wanted to do a guided meditation, so hopefully I can still get to that. But an example that I want to give is like, okay, so the person gets a glimpse of intuition and wants more of that, and is thinking like, you know, this power control drama that I'm stuck in, it's exhausting me, so I don't really want to do that for a while. It's too stressful, too exhausting. But of course the survival, the ego is still there and still comes in with, yeah, but you need to have your basic needs met and so forth. So, you know, the person let go of his entrepreneurial journeys for a while because there was only stress and exhaustion in that path. So, you know, take like a basic job, so, you know, he can start to learn to get more in touch with his intuitive voice. And that job, you know, like 1 week he can work a couple of days and still have time to get in touch with that other part. And then the ego starts in, what, buddy, you have only worked 2 days, 3 days, it's not enough, it's not enough money. And then another week, it's busy, you know, more work comes in and it's getting asked, you want to do 50, 60 hours a week? He said, yes, of course, it's got to be more money. And then after that, completely mentally, emotional, physically depleted. Why? Because that job is actually coming from a place of lack, right? Everything that is created from that place is coming from a place of lack, all right? Disbelief, perhaps, self-doubt, maybe. And because there's always this lack, you know, no matter how much time you spend in there, it's always like the feeling like, okay, so now I spend more time in this, now I have a little bit more money, but I have no time at all for myself. But if I don't spend too much time in that, then I got no enough money, right? So there's always like lack that's going on. And that same lack can also be experienced when you are in a journey of more control, more power, and more of everything, because it's still coming from a place of lack, right? When there is no satisfaction or fulfillment experienced, then there is always lack. There's always lack. So the big question is, of course, so how do you can actually start creating from this internal abundance? This internal abundance where, you know, you're coming from your own place of joy and bliss and love and inspiration and creativity and perhaps intuitive channeling, right? Where you channel in your own insights and visions and inspirations. And when you really start to create just for the joy of it, right? No expectations, no conditions, no feelings of separations, no duality in the form of judgments. Where intuition really comes in the form of maybe clairvoyance, where you start to see visions, images, insights, or any other form of intuitive signs, signals. And the first thing that comes up, of course, like, okay, there's something coming in, like your intuitive voice is talking to you. That's the first thing that's coming in. The second thing is the judger, the ego, like, no, you can't have that because fill in the blank. But as soon as you start to realize, okay, so these are my patterns of my ego, of my survival minds, I know it's there, I know it's part of me, I know I can have it, you know. I'm not going to fight against it, I'm not going to suppress it or neglect it, but create awareness that it actually exists and that that part of you wants to go against everything that is coming through you, okay? And then say, you know what, I have no idea what the heck I'm doing or how I should be doing it, but what I know is that it feels right, and when it feels right, that is what I'm going to pursue by doing things that feels right. So what can be these things that can feel right. That's totally up to you, of course. But if you find some sort of activity that makes you feel fully present, there are no conditions, there are no expectations. And of course that causes a lot of confusion and doubt by the ego. Because, you know, if you do that, you know, if there are no conditions, no expectations, then how do you know that's going to support you? Well, make a relationship with the ego and do things that cover up your basic needs. And you say, you know what, I've got everything. Everything is being covered, so I don't need to pay much attention to that anymore. And then, you know, start paying more attention to what is coming through you, your insight, your inspiration. Start sending out waves of love and joy and bliss and fulfillment, satisfaction, happiness, alignment, inspiration, creativity, your own artistic expression, for example. And because you are giving without conditions and expectations, then, you know, who knows what is coming back to you, and that can replace maybe that part what your ego was holding on to, that was trying to cover up your basic needs, for example. And that may be a way, a stepping stone of trying to silence more the ego voice and start accepting more and embracing more your intuitive voice, your intuition. So what are the ways, you know? So what can you do right now to start practicing this? Because of course it is a practice of self-reflection, mindfulness, and trying to, you know, put things into perspective and take a step back in order to step up. Of course there's like, it is a journey of stepping onto your ship and sailing the storms of many ups and downs, sailing through fog, thunder, what else can come up to you that is going to perhaps give you a lot of stress. But eventually you will learn to sail, you will learn to move through these waves. You learn to navigate and to trust that there will always be new clarity on the horizon, is when you are trying to sail without wind through a bank of fog. So the best way, of course, is to get more in touch with your intuition, is first of all mindfulness, self-reflection. All right, so become very aware of your thoughts and emotions. Journal, right? Always ask yourself, so, you know, is this thing related to my survival, or is this related to my inspiration? Meditation, you know, follow guided meditations to get much more in touch with your own essence. Get out in nature. Have long walks in nature, for example, is where you can totally relax and ground yourself and let go of the chatter that's going on in your mind and just become present. That's the whole thing, learning to become present, because the ego is never present. It's always out there, thinking about what happened in the past, that it might happen again in the future. It's never present. Your intuition is only presence. There is only presence. What else can you do? So we spoke about self-reflection, mindfulness, meditation, long walks in nature, creative self-expression, your own artistic self-expression, or any other form that makes you feel present. Maybe it's in dance, another art form, maybe it's listening to music or playing music. Anything where you can forget the time, where there is no time, because that's also illusion, but that's an other concept. So what is it for you? What is it that makes you feel present? Let me know and drop a comment below, so you know we can learn from each other and start helping each other to lift each other up in following your own joy, following your own bliss, and following your own inspiration. Because that is what this is all about, is where we learn to start giving without expectations and having trust that what we are sending out is always coming back. Of course, this is totally against the ego, because the ego does not trust anyone, especially when you are, surrounded in that kind of environment, when you are in the rat race, when no one is trusting each other. You go along with these collective beliefs, right? So it's always very, very important to always take a step back and connect again with your own essence, with your own true authentic self. So let me know, what is the way for you? What is that you're currently doing? Or, what makes you feel more present? Let me know, just drop a comment below. And if you want more of these type of videos, let me know, make sure to subscribe to this channel, because that's what we are practicing, is to learn to connect more with our own intuition, higher self, and lift the consciousness and learn to move above our ego voice, silence the ego voice, have the awareness that we have it, it's part of us, but that we can learn to move above that and see for what it is. We can say, all right, that's the part that wants to survive, but not today. Chappelle here, signing off. Take care for now. Bye bye.